streaming thing? Is it streaming or just recording?
Just like 1 second. It's all being live streamed on YouTube.
Live stream on YouTube.
Yeah. Hopefully that shouldn't.
But not recorded.
I mean,
It'll be recording.
it's on recorded on YouTube.
YouTube because.
Okay, we're good.
All right. I have no idea.
Igor, security champions.
Yeah, cool. It's actually Security Champions 2.0, if you talk the official name of the framework, because it's a second iteration of this thing. It's listed on OWASP, and it's part of the OWASP Open Web Security Best Practices thing. So in here, I'll talk like about my own experience at Opera, how we scaled the security in the company. So essentially, yeah, as I told, we were talking before, there are two types of security checks or security expertise you need to have. Both like one is external, when you have like audits and things like that, but you can't rely only on audits because as we like talk to like listen to Adam, they're like very slow and it's a waterfall process, and while they are like checking it, the software changes so much, so it might be already outdated. So yeah, so we need to have some internal knowledge as well. So this is one of the ways of how to scale internal knowledge. So this is all about some foundations of security. It's about avoiding some basic mistakes and essentially avoiding the avoidable. It's not about, still the security champions is, to releasing some baseline secure product that doesn't leak some sensitive information when it shouldn't leak and things like that. And it's a very sort of vague and simple framework that doesn't really depend on the details. For instance, which kind of threat modeling will you use, or which kind of risk assessment framework will you use. And it's all based on my own experience and my own understanding, like working in the company. So the framework itself is very simple. That's all you probably should know. So it's it's a bottom-up approach. When security testing and all the security, it's being shared between the security team or security person inside a company, and there's something that's called security champions, and they're like in relationship with each other. And security team in there, it's more provides like guidance and leadership than the actual heavy lifting of the work. And security champions, they actually do the job, they execute, and so this kind of relationship, I'll just draw this in here just to keep it. So we have the team. Team might be one person in this case. It depends on the size of the company, it depends on their things. And they're like in here, we'll go like security champions. Right, so that's...
Was that one? What's the line?
Yeah, I'm just that there is some separation because security champions, they are not bound to the. It's not one team. It's a little bit different. So I'll talk about it. I'll fill this diagram when I'm going through the slide. So first is who they are, essentially, right? We know this. In a second, and it might be literally anyone, but. It might be developers, it might be QAs, it might be UX, UI designers, it might be any PMs, POs, whatever. The important part that they are insider in some project, in some areas, so they know this product and project very well from the inside. It's not. That's the difference between an auditing agency that knows a lot about security, but kind of little about the product. So these people know a lot about the product or a project. So they're inside. They know the source code, they know the components, or they know the designs, but they might not know as much about security at first. They're interested in security. So that gives some kind of ability to either be sure that, okay, I think, and I'm sure that this change is not affecting our security in any way, right? Or if they're not sure, they can always, they're escalating to the security team in terms of if they're not sure. And of course, not only that, but they also actually actively participate in threat modeling, all the security decision, like everything this company does within the security process. Like any security process, they actually participate in, and they're kind of, you might call them, they're actually ones who try to make decisions, and then this decision gets overviewed by the security team, or maybe a security consultant, security person itself. One important thing about this, so they should be a volunteer. So it's a volunteering role within the project or within the team. So it's someone who is interested. It's not enough to just come and tell you, you'll be security champion. I assign it to you. That's usually it works very badly. So it's so there's that interesting growth. So I'll fill this diagram. So for instance, we have project 1, project A, and under the project A we have, let's say, 3 teams. So each of the team should have the champion, for instance. So they might be different, right? So they might be. So in here it might be a developer, in here it might be QA, and here it might be, I don't know, a product manager who is interested in security. And they are either can escalate it back to the team, or they can stamp an approval that this is fine. For instance, on some of the features, they might be designs or actual code. So now a little bit about why do we need them? So first and foremost, the thing that's obvious, and if it's obvious, it's not even written. So it's super hard to hire enough security engineers for all the project and all the teams within the company. It's almost impossible to do that. So what we need to do to decentralize this knowledge, to educate our own, the people who are interested in that, in security basics and security analysis. And then we also, by doing that, we are integrating security within the working process, because there's someone who is interested, someone who is tracking the current security state, someone who is participating in all of this activity, someone who is reminding about security and thinking. So it's all builds a security culture. And what's good about this particular framework, that it's really independent of all the details, and it's pretty flexible and simple. That's regarding why. I mean, I also expect if you have questions, just interrupt me and ask if you have anything. No, I'll talk a little bit about implementation details, about.
So the framework is basically have a security team, and then anybody within the organization who maybe has some kind of concern about security, they raise it as a red flag, and then the security team. Yeah, it's like if someone is interested in security, they are more or less raised that, okay, I want to have this role, I want to try to be in a security champion. That allows us not to only raise the issues when the process is going, but also do some bigger things like waterfall stuff, like threat modeling, for instance, which you don't do every week with every release, right? You don't do threat modeling from ground up for each release or for each pull request or something. So there are some separate security track, and then there is development track, and security track is also going into it a little bit. So is it permission to get this role type? Say if, for example, I'm working on a particular subject, and then I know that somebody in my team is a security champion, and I want to raise this, and then they don't raise it on my behalf, what do I do then? I
mean, you can always raise it to the security team yourself. Of course, I mean.
But it's just a delegation to somebody to be a security champion, so they constantly thinking about this. Or?
Yeah, they have this mindset, and they also as I'll talk about the implementation detail. But it's important that one person. It's not if literally everyone is responsible for security. It's essentially no one is responsible. Right? No one is thinking full time. Yeah, it's a little bit focused, but still it's decentralized around. Each team has its own. So if
it's something like a swarm lead.
Yeah. Or it might be a swarm role, right? Security champion for a swarm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So how to implement this? There is a playbook. It's on GitHub. I will share a link later. So let's identify 6 steps about implementation details of this. Don't try to read it. I'll show them one by one because right now there is no diagram. The first thing you need to do obviously is to just identify which teams and projects you have, which is pretty simple in our case. And also, yeah, identify technologies and who is like tech owner, product owner. It might be the same, not team, but swarms as well. It works the same way, essentially. And then what makes it flexible, we also think that we want to define the role of security champion. What do we think that it might help us with? For instance, if we already have a lot of security people in the company, the role of security champions might be slightly smaller, like less responsibility. If we don't have that many security experts in the company, the role might be extended. So it depends on, will they do security review or will they not do security review for PRs? Like, it depends. For us, I think they should. For us, and at Opera, it was like this because we didn't, like, again, security team wasn't like huge, so it can work like with any project that Opera works with. So that means that, yeah, security champions have more responsibilities. If you have just a small team and you already have, like, for instance, if you are already doing like a security product that I've seen startups, that security product that's like 5 people and like 3 of them are security experts, then probably it's a bit like maybe you don't need it at all. So then, yeah, you try to define what we probably want to define here. Security goals maybe for the company, for the teams, like midterm means like 1-2 quarters to understand like which direction we want to go with security. So understanding where we are, where we want to go. And then we also need to actually write down and document what security champion is doing and how will it help with moving from point A to point B. Then, yeah, first one probably we don't need it. We just more or less showing all the points. Sometimes you need to get management understand that security is a thing. Probably not in our company.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not for us. But then we need to somehow identify people interested in security in the team. I mean, obviously all people who are here are interested, but also we might want to have like a bigger, I don't know, maybe a polio or something like this. So people who maybe were too shy or didn't manage to come here, but still interested can raise their hand. Then we need to officially nominate them. And it's like, we need to be very, very clear that that's a role. It's not I don't know, it's not a promotion to be a security champion. That's just a role you are taking. And you might, if you don't like it, you might just tell, okay, I don't feel like doing that anymore. Maybe we need to redo that again. And yeah, that's important to be, because that's what I like saw, like being burned by the security champions thing. It's when it was not presented like a role, it was more presented like, okay, you are kind of promoted to a security champion, and then the person hated it, but still he was like, okay, don't want to go back, I don't want to be just a developer, already like a champion. And then it might, yeah, but I mean, it's not everyone can actually do security review, because as I told the closest analogy to the security engineer in the company, like that, is a commercial airline pilot, which you think that it's a pretty cool job. It looks fancy, flying and stuff, but in reality, it's like a bazillion of checklists that you can have to pass every day, like multiple times a day, just checklists and checklists and checklists. So the security stuff is a lot related to this. So it's both tricky and fairly boring. So that's why you need to be able to maybe even like to rotate people. Some person gets very tired of this. So yeah. The next thing is to set up communication. Yeah, it's nice to have a Slack channel, maybe some mailing list, and some kind of a separate thing only between the security champions where they discuss, I don't know, something like maybe trainings and things like that. So some place for them to talk like cross team and raise, because sometimes security champion might be a point of contact if another team, like, I don't know, let's say in our case, the Clojure team might ask the Go team, so they have some concern inside the Go code base. So if that's a security concern, the security champion of Go team might be a point of contact for that. That might be nice.
So, is it the security team that keeps these champions accountable? Like if they don't hear from them, like if there's no funding in from time to time?
That's the role of, essentially the security team here goes from being just like engineers, for security engineers, to more like a leadership and guiding thing. So they are of course responsible for, and they also have to do an action if some person, it looks like he doesn't tell anything, but it looks like he's burning out, for instance, of this. So they need to be a little bit accountable on that. So what's also useful, since security champions are not coming from the security background usually, it's important to build a security knowledge base and best practices. So basically educate this, have some place to read up about basics of security here and there. Have checklists. Maybe one of the things that security champions or security team might do is actually to try to help preparing some checklists that are specific for our application, not like generic like OWASP top 10 something, but what's tailored specifically for our application, what doing is. And then of course they should have a contact for essentially security engineers, technical owners, and the champions themselves. And now the sixth step is one of the most important one, because it's, as I told, it's a might be very boring job. So you need to maintain interest somehow with it. And what we found useful was do some workshops, send to some trainings, to vast meetups, things like that. So essentially what usually the security engineer want to go to. So essentially treat them as a security engineer that you want to also educate and grow. One more cool thing is that security team might share recent news in security. They might be, actually like finding vulnerabilities is pretty boring, but when you find it and read about someone who found some tricky way of handling this stuff, that might be very, very exciting. So it might be interesting for them to actually read up, okay, this week news in AppSec, and believe me, there are a lot of news in AppSec, like every week. So there are lots of things to choose from. And one more important is that important to send some, like maybe on the monthly schedule, send some updates to everyone that tell, okay, security champions there helped to identify this risk or help to fix this. So they need to be recognized. So it's also sort of what's there being paid for this pretty boring but very important job of doing this. And I think, that's the diagram here. That's essentially the things that I told in different things. And I can tell the example, for instance. There's a lot of text, but let's imagine that Alice.
Yeah, there's another question. You can take it after because it's slight tangent, but it has to do with education.
Yeah. So there's an example. So we have Alice. So she is the security champion in some web server team, and she is a developer. She's a web developer. So what does she do? Like in general, the process of a company. For instance, when the service, like when the new feature is being planned, she participates in threat modeling together with the security team. Actually, she does try to do threat modeling and then send the documents with her ideas for their review to the security team. And then when threats are identified and risk identified, she also assesses the risks to find out, these are high severity, these are low severity. This again gets overviewed and reviewed by the security team itself. And also she might make a Kanban board with like, okay, these risks are there, these are like in progress, this we decided not to do anything about it, these are already mitigated, and this we decided to keep until next version. So something like this, just a Kanban board with like existing risks. So when the feature started development, she does some basic security review of those tasks, which might be important. So what's the security implication of just implementing that without even touching the implementation details? If we want to do like a forgot password thing, what a security implication of like forgot password thing in a web service, right? Then also the PRs, the code itself, so that we have like a proper, if in crypto we need to have a constant time comparing of bytes arrays things like that. She also might add new risks that, I mean, stuff change all the time, and agile teams especially, like, we decided to do that, it turns out it doesn't work, we decided to tweak it somehow, so new risks will appear. Then she also kind of pushes the team, like reminds, okay, but we also have this outstanding risk, there's a pretty high severity, let's this week also work on that. That might be also the case. And designs, yeah, she might participate in some kind of, if there is a design review culture, for instance, if there is design review, she might also participate and say, okay, but in this design, it's very easy to fool a person that he is another person, or he's another balance, for instance, or things like that. And then apart from that, of course, she goes like to some security training, to all that meetups and some conferences. Like if she's a web developer, so maybe it's a web dev, some security conference or DevOpsSec, DevSecOps, right? And then she also receives the letter and talks of the security channel. That's kind of the life of one security champion within one project. Oscar, you wanted to ask?
No, it's just you had a great point there with maintaining interest and education and so on. And I think that maybe generalizes. So right now, really good. We have a pretty good mix of people here. Mm-hmm. One thing I noticed is that in terms of culture and so on, like people who already go to a lot of sort of Ethereum meetups and consume some type of material, they're more likely to keep doing it. So of the people who go to Ethereum conferences, they generally go to like a lot of them, right? And then we have a lot of people that might not have ever gone to any of them, will be exposed to certain concepts around like privacy or security in general and so on. And it's important because it's like a sync. So people naturally gravitate towards, if you already started to go to Ethereum conferences, you want to go to the next one and so on. It would be interesting as an organization to maybe have a counterforce to that, where we try to encourage people who are not going to any of these conferences to go to that. And I think that it's like tangent to what you're saying, but it may be like a generalization of getting everyone on the same page and thinking in similar mental models and so on. Yeah. And I think that's not something that's going to happen from bottom up. That's maybe something we need to.
Yeah, I mean, the first, it's always hard to start something, right? So it's always hard to go to the first conference, to the first meetup. But then if you already started, it's much easier. So maybe in this, you might even want some top-down approach to that.
Yeah, like just encouraging it more somewhere, I don't know.
Not like pushing.
That's not what leadership is about. It's about showing people an alternative that they didn't think about before. That's what leadership always comes to.
Yeah.
It's like helping somebody else to discover something that they didn't think was possible. That's what I appreciate about people that I learn from. It's not so much tech, but so people going to conferences like ACDC, I have like 6 first-time conference goers now. I mean, all the people that they could go there. It's going to be good for you.
I mean, that's a great example. Exactly. I'm just saying something we can do.
So the same thing here. Like, once if you want people to go to InfoSec conferences, you have to encourage them to go to InfoSec conferences. It's not easy. and that might be what.
I'm not saying it wasn't easy. I'm just saying that it's something we should be doing. That.
Because I mean, sometimes if you're like a developer, like you might be so entrenched with like, okay, I need to fix that, I need to do that, and you might just forget about the work. Sometimes it's good to just receive something, okay, maybe something else.
There is one thing here, which is that this seems to be that the security champion is a little bit of a long-term role.
If it
because
works,
you're supposed
yes.
to go to conferences, dig into it, read the news, monthly reviews, blah, blah, blah. So it would be interesting to see how something like this works together with Swans, which are supposed to be 2-3 weeks, keep changing. I don't know if that's an issue or not.
I mean, it depends really. I haven't seen it in like short term. Like I saw it in a project that are like 4 to 5 months. That's probably the shortest one that I saw. But I saw also the people, for instance, taking this long-termly in different projects. So, for instance, the person was involved in that as a security champion, then he changed the team into that, and he's still a security champion. So it's right, but it's also it's important that he still keeps being interested in that. That's the cornerstone always. If he isn't, then it's nice to, but yeah, it's so, and then basically a recap what I said, and the important part is it's very important that security decisions are made by those who know the most details about what they do. Yeah.
I imagine, like, I mean, a person leading a swarm is going to enter into another swarm as well. So maybe using a natural out if they're not particularly interested in it. If they are interested in it, they can continue to fulfill that kind of role. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's the details, of course. I mean, that's a part of. We might experiment with the details. How, of course, we want to like people, swap people, or some people might, just gravitate towards security and then just keep them in different projects. The same, but yeah, that's essentially what I wanted to tell you today. And if you have any more questions, or
One more question: Where do you think we are in the playbook?
well,
That's maybe like
Zero security team. Zero. And we have no champion.
yeah.
I mean, we have
Adam is
volunteers
kind of
Yeah, we have Adam, who's our interim security champion. So
I was just like trying to run this audit. I'm not really have much experience with that, so I would like, that's a topic that's interesting for me, but I would not put myself as someone who's really experienced with that. So again,
not security team, but in terms of chat, like you.
For
as in terms of this diagram.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
My other question is, what's a good ratio you think of like developers? Is it like one security champion per 10 developers? Like,
we did like one per team because it's if you have some bounded like area, but like wallet or maybe like I don't know, whole status go. I don't know if it's one team right now. So or like infra, so might be one per area, I would say, or one per swarm might work as well, because if we in this swarm we develop a particular feature, then
Yeah, but I think the question was on average, like in the company, how many did you end up with, right? Because at the end of the day, the teams, you can slice and dice things
of course.
as you like.
So we ended up probably one per 15 people, something like this.
Cool. So I think that some of these champions may participate in other teams, right? So that person may not maybe actively working on some product from one team, but just join do some code reviews, or like just join the stand-ups and get a general idea what the team's working on. Maybe just oversee this from a security perspective, necessarily producing some. I guess that's not the ideal situation, but it's possible.
I mean, it should be possible. I don't see anything that goes against that. Essentially, the second project, for instance, is much smaller, or the first one is on maintenance, and there is no much security or anything like any feature development happens. So I don't see any problems with that. That's the same. Like if you might share like two swarms if it's reasonable in size. Of course, if it's a huge swarm about like some huge or big feature, then it's better to have a dedicated person. If it's like two small or three small things, then we just want to switch here and there.
Yeah.
All right, slightly unrelated, but
Yeah.
slightly unrelated. I also got in touch with Kirill from Marathon this weekend. Is there some promoted security head? There's a group forming by a guy named Robert Bent. I don't know if anybody knows of him. He's apparently been involved in.
For a bit.
Yeah, I think so.
Robbie.
He's been involved in Engaged Price with us. I think Andy knows him.
Yeah.
Probably. Right, so they're forming like a security group within the Ethereum space.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a spot on that panel as of now, and well, I guess I'm going to be there unless this is back. But think about it and spread it.
Could you elaborate what do you mean? What is it again?
It's like a group, informal group forming to discuss security matters within.
It's like a literal. It's a panel, right? It's like a one.
Yeah, like a
one time.
Or like is it more like a working group? Or?
Yeah, like a working group kind of dish. And I think they're gonna meet in Berlin for the first time. I'm gonna visit, so But I'm gonna give it, I think I'm gonna pick up a call with this guy when I finish. So if you have any items or if you want to join that call,
I'll chat with you.
Thanks, Igor.
Yeah, thank you.
So we had zero preparation together.
Yeah, no.
Very much asynchronously prepared, but we want to talk to you about how UXR can contribute to risk management and what, like in general, we would see as what our role could be in that. Put here as in last minute editing, analyzing and documenting user risks and use errors. To get one thing out of the way, like straight from the start, I am very firm on using use errors rather than user errors. And in like the whole scene of risk management, I've learned that it's very common to talk about user errors. And yeah, it's usually not the user's mistake. It's something that we can foresee. So we want to talk about like the human node in threat models. Again, how we as UXR might contribute in that. What we learned so far, what has come up in testing as in like potential use errors that we have seen. Some existing mental models of people, which are generally good to know in terms of risk management as well. And a little bit jumping ahead into what's more closely related to risk management, some usability engineering type of aspects that are not necessarily research, but they are results of what we know about people that we can apply in general. Do you want to take from this one?
Yeah, so I mean, generally we see ourselves as being is sort of serving kind of like these roles of being on the front line sometimes of watching people use the product or having errors with the product. That we kind of see different risks that propagate or that kind of pop up in these studies where we say, okay, like, is this a user error that we've seen, or is it actually something that is kind of like a product, like a result of some type of misunderstanding of what the product is trying to do, and the user just they don't really understand maybe the possible risk that they're sort of encountering or they're exhibiting. So we try, like one thing that we can do is try and have a kind of like a codified way of saying, okay, this is a risk. Like when we're testing something, this is like some possible part of the application that someone might have an error with, and that's a security risk. And then testing it and making sure that we test it, retest it, and make it kind of part of our process. Some of these things that we like, sometimes we see some of these risks in the wild, or like we've taken a couple of different examples from different products, but then also there's one example from what we've seen already, and I think we can talk about this a little bit more. But there's definitely these examples where people have a misunderstanding of what the product is trying to convey, what we're trying to actually have them do, what they actually end up trying to do, or how they interpret as they're part of their mental models, which is what I just said. So, so one, I think it's sort of an interesting kind of example from, I think, kind of the financial world is, interest-only loans. Means I never have to pay, right? So you're only paying off the interest on your loan, and that's actually, that is a way in which you're paying for a loan that you've set up. And so this is like, go ahead.
Just to speak to this one, because this was indeed like financial, like really identifying a new risk. In like no world would we have imagined that there's actually people who think that if they borrow money, they never have to give it back. So this was like a risk discovery example. And just to jump ahead to the second one, was related to an expanded understanding of what the risk was. So this is related to medical devices. Medical device testing is like quite focused on use errors and potential safety risks. In this example, imagine like a big, huge MR device. I don't know, they weigh tons of kilos. And they use coils, which are like little antennas that you put up around different body parts, and they heat up when they send signals. And in order to make sure that children that are being put in such a device are safe, there's a limit to the, let's say, strength of the antenna that you can use. Those antennas are labeled, saying like, this is safe for a kid. And what we noticed in testing was that people would actually like walk to the other side of the, I'm going to call it operating room, but pick up a different coil that wasn't labeled with, this is not safe for a kid. So this is where we thought like we have this issue covered by saying this is safe, but we didn't think of the scenario where you would actually use something that was not safe. So it's more of a testing of mitigations and whether they work or not. These are some that we came across.
Yeah, I've seen this. I mean, like this is both, I think, testing from status and then also just a general, like just general experience in the industry as well as is password reuse, right? Like, so we see this all the time that people don't, you know, like, they don't want to reuse, or so they don't want to come up with a unique password for every single application that they're using, and they might not have heard of a password manager, or they don't know when one exists, or they don't know where to go to find information about a password manager. So what we do is like we satisfy, right? We come up with one password and we use it in all different applications. And this is a classic security risk, right? Like, this is something that we can think about. How can we help users with actually creating unique passwords every time so that they don't have to go through the process of doing it actually creating a new password. And then the last one is actually one that I think have you seen this in testing? Because I feel like I have seen this in testing, where people have specifically referenced the signing phrase as a form of two-factor authentication, which is also a security risk, as I understand it. So that's so they think that, you know, like either the emojis that we've been testing or the 3-word password is some way in which you're supposed to re-authenticate, kind of like maybe like the Google Authenticator app would do. So.
Yeah, this is also the difficulty that people are used to what they've learned from banking apps. So as soon as they use something that relates to assets or things you own, two-factor authentication is known, and things like the signing phrase are not. So if you think you understand what you're looking at, then you're not going to look any further. Right, yeah. So to summarize, these are like risk identification examples. What we can also do is test mitigations and see to what extent they work or not. Borrowing some things here of how that works, like in medical device testing. The difference is compared to how we test now, that this is like in an extremely controlled environment. So the way we've been testing now is like quite informal, actually, to understand the dynamics between people adding each other while they're sitting next to each other in a chair. But that introduces a lot of noise, and we don't control exactly what happens. If we really want to know if a mitigation that we build to like keep people safe works, we have to use a lot more controlled environments. Another thing that's done in like testing in such like rigid circumstances is that you have a very elaborate test script that categorizes tasks that you can do. At the moment, they're just tasks to us. They're like transfer someone money, request someone money. We don't categorize what type of task that is. In this risk testing environment, they're usually categorized as these are essential tasks. This is something someone has to be able to do. These are frequently used. So it's like sending a text message. If you screw up with that and you do it 20, 30 times a day, it becomes annoying. So it's a separate category, and safety related, which is where like the risk items might be, and like recognizing your signing phrase might be, in this case, like a safety related type of task. It usually includes also training materials. If in some way we say we will be educating people through videos on YouTube, we would need to include that. Otherwise, we will never know if the whole like mitigation package as a whole will work. We simulate the context. So people are stressed for time. Usually they have limited attention. They use tools next to what we're providing them with, so they might switch between apps. While in our test environment, we're like asking them to use status, and that's it. But that's not reality. So if we want to know if like risk mitigations work, we tend to put people in a specific environment. And that means, for example, giving them an extra task. Can you still create an account or like make a transaction while you're also counting the number of times you see an X on the screen, for example. Testing warnings and other messages are also included. So what we test now is pretty much a happy flow. And we're still learning with every session. There's sessions on Thursday and Friday by Philip. We're still learning with just the happy flow. But if we want to understand if risk mitigations work, we have to start testing the like warnings and anything that might go wrong as well. It's a success criteria. If we want to be able to say a signing phrase works, or people know how to back up their recovery phrase and why it's important, we need to start creating a library of these are things that to us indicate that people understand what's going on. So as soon as they mention recovery phrase or get access to my account, or so we need to start being a little bit more rigid as in what is success. Almost there. So in terms of analyzing data, I think we've been using like a template to more or less keep track of like which tasks are easy to do and which are like where people kind of tend to screw up. User errors. This is a classification that says like success, failure, close call. In testing for risk, usually if close call is only one person that did not manage to do something, that would be a case that now we don't really look at because they are the NS1 and we don't know how often it would happen. That's fine for a happy flow, but for a high risk situation, and what if that person would be transferring a lot of assets in this situation, then it's important for us to also look at the close call.
Yeah, so then, I mean, that's a good example of maybe where we would adjust expectations about how successful people need to be with these tasks. Like we can be 80% right in the happy flow sometimes, but for a high risk security situations, like we need to have this be 100% correct for pretty much anyone that we tested.
Yeah, so actually in a lot of cases, testing in Europe, you usually actually like literally put a percentage on.
Yeah.
All right, you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, so again, some more examples of what we've seen with specific usage around our security risk usage from testing and what we've learned so far. So yeah, people will take screenshots. And I think this is not true just for status. I think this is also true for from anecdotal things that I've heard from people using other apps in the blockchain space. This was definitely mentioned at this conference that I went to this last weekend, the Staff UX conference in Prague. It was a theme, and that people leave their assets at an exchange as well. So this next point where like they don't really realize the security risk in general of leaving assets in exchange at this point. So we think there's a lot of people that are doing this. Similarly, they're combining with other people. So this came about in testing for both of us in Berlin, I think, where people, when we asked them about how they set up their wallet, they literally said, "I have no idea." Like I gave them, so they say like I gave my fiat, or I gave permission to my friend to set up an account for me. I have login access to this account in some cases. Yeah. It was not very clear, but basically they sort of had this joint relationship where they're managing like a crypto pool of money in the same account. And so, it depends on your attitude towards security, but I mean that could be a really high security risk. Since for some people, obviously, it's not. They didn't see that as a security risk, which is kind of insane. But the other thing is, I sort of mentioned before, yeah, people are familiar with two-factor authentication, and so they're kind of applying that mental model that they're taking from Web 2 to Web 3, and they're seeing these new phrases or these new words for these new security phrases. Yeah, and then people lose or don't recall what they've done with their seed phrases. I think we all heard it.
Show of hands. How many are doing at least 2 of these with the status app right now?
Yeah. I mean, like I totally took a screenshot.
Yeah. And
So,
so,
any thoughts on like how to circumvent that, or like how to change the UX?
Take
Yeah.
the screenshot.
I mean, yeah, I think like, yeah, that's sort of one like very quick jump to, is there a way to protect that a screenshot is being taken on the screen at like at the OS level? Is that
or warn them?
or warn them?
Yeah.
I guess
Empty the wallet as soon as they can
Snapchat
screenshot
was
and say,
warning.
No, you can. So there's a detection. And
Yeah.
we can get into the nitty-gritty, but for that one specifically, you can detect
Mhm.
post fact.
Right. Yes.
And you can say
Androids
your
should
wallet
be-
is truth.
Well, it is compromised. That's a security risk. Read more here.
I like it because it's very gradual and it's not like, oh, people take screenshots, let's block it or make sure they can. People are gonna find a way, like they will.
They'll take a
like,
photo with
take
another
another
phone.
phone.
Yeah. I guess it's worse on the phone.
I get one root cause of that is that when you start using the app, you don't have a lot of assets in it. So you have $5, like whatever. But if you're gonna spend like I don't know 10 grand or whatever in there, then there are things. There's not gonna
Like
be a
2
single.
years later, you don't even realize that. Like,
So maybe it's a matter of having like gradual UX where as soon as you get to a certain level, it's like maybe you want to set up a new wallet and do it this way, whatever. That would be one way because it would match the psychology of the individual.
Upsell the hardware wallets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, right? I mean, because you have people don't care if it's $5. Like that's a psychological truth. You're not going to get around that. So you need. I think there's two different use cases.
I think there's actually-
regarding the photo, it's good that we evolved to digital and you don't have to send the roll to to the lab with the picture. That would be.
There's right now, 2 things are coming to mind. There's actually a design that I'm not sure if it's implemented of a warning to back up your seed phrase that only comes after you've reached a certain amount in your wallet. That was the idea behind it. And another thing I'm realizing now, 2 other things. There's one idea that has come up about maybe spreading the words over different screens so that at least it's not in one screenshot, if that would help. And something Philip told me yesterday was that he was talking to a participant who actually gave printed copies of his seed phrase to family members across the city. So he was safe of losing it and he didn't keep it digital. Which I thought was quite an interesting solution because we're all about don't share it with anyone and it's like your PIN code but for this person it actually created a lot of safety because it was controlled. He knew what was going on. So.
There was a study that actually showed that just writing down your passwords on a paper for a normal person who doesn't know, who is not security geek or something, it's much more safe than storing them digitally in any way. So it just because people are usually much better at knowing that, this paper is super important, so I need to keep it. So you don't lose your passport like every month or something, but people tend to lose their files and stuff all the time. So
that's a good one.
Enjoy the keyboard.
And this one talks about 2 things. All right, this is a pretty random list. All right, so the first one is actually to illustrate. I did something quite embarrassing yesterday. I got off the plane and I took one of the buses to the terminal. I ended up on the French side, which was quite confusing for me. I got off the bus and I realized that I had left my laptop on the plane. And this was actually when I was typing this on my phone, and I was so incredibly consumed with taking notes for today that I did not pay any attention to bringing my stuff or putting my headphones down. I always forget which is which. So system 1, I might be wrong here, is what we do day to day. If I pick up a cup of coffee, or if I check is my phone still there, or if I'm typing. Actually, not if I'm typing, the packing up my stuff while I'm typing is all the system 1 stuff that kind of goes on autopilot, and the system 2 is everything that you're paying close attention to. And usually in getting people to pay attention to high risk situations is about getting them to a system 2 state to somehow trigger this attention. Because we're very absent-minded.
But that's physically in different parts of the brain, right?
Yeah.
So the system 2 is in the neurocortex, and the system 1 is I forgot. But it's a very old brain.
smaller part.
Yeah.
The biggest.
Amygdala.
So that's what meditation is, moving from system 1 to system 2.
Right. And this is, I mean, that's a good example, I think, of what actually the model of the seed phrase copying is. It's like we're trying to get people to focus in like in user system 2 thinking, to really focus on like getting this thing down and thinking about where am I going to store this securely and safely to access it.
So like practically, how we do that now is to actually start a process and end a process. So in the designs that we have now, you start to back up your seed phrase and it says step 1 to 3.
Yeah.
So that you actually sit down and do it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this one you mentioned earlier with the passwords, the satisfy thing, as soon as you feel safe because you enter a password, like you feel safe, so you feel like you're done. It's kind of like going into the car and driving faster because you're wearing a seatbelt. So it's that principle. As soon as people feel safe, you'll stop thinking about it. I can imagine that maybe just the fact of using status can be enough to make people feel safe. If we promote ourselves as the most secure app out there, you might just ignore anything else that you need to do to actually stay safe. Yeah, habituation is just about like getting used to certain patterns. What we've seen, like if there's a text field right below a text label, you might imagine that you need to copy that text into the field, just because that's what you've been used to. So any pattern that we see in other apps, or if we copy them to status, people are going to have an expectation of how it's supposed to be used.
It's, I mean, like touting status as being like the most secure app is kind of scary to me. Like, I like the idea of like trying to educate in terms of like you are now responsible for your data. Yeah. Because it's going to become a huge problem when people think that we have some degree of influence over their assets, being able to recover them or something.
Yeah. About like educating, just to like latch on to that. We know that training people in context or telling people about things in context usually is remembered or recalled a lot more effectively. So what we tend to do now is we give a warning in the beginning. You should back up your seed phrase, or in some designs that I've seen as well, we might warn people about potential scams, but no, what's the example I'm looking for? Signing phrase. Again, we might tell people during the onboarding flow of the wallet that you need your signing phrase for certain situations, but we don't actually put people in that situation. So we ask them to remember, like, this is your signing phrase, check so you know what it looks like, but then we don't test in a situation where they might get a different signing phrase or where they might actually be making a transfer. So like demo modes like that or showing things in context, we know to be very powerful. We're not using them yet.
On that signing phrase, have we ever tried to screw it up intentionally and see if anybody complains?
Yeah.
But how would you,
I mean,
like, how would you screw it up? Like, what does that mean?
We just put a random word in there and see what that's supposed to be there and see if anybody files a bug report. Essentially.
So you
phrase,
don't enter it, right? So
you don't
for
enter it.
phrase.
No, you're supposed to look at it and know that it's not a scam, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Right. And
So
then
what the app could do is to show a random word in there.
Yeah.
and it's a bit dangerous for
That's the dangerous thing to do.
No, but like, in your session.
For testing, that's exactly how we do it.
That'd be like a whole IOTA drama thing going on.
I didn't know this.
Out in your space.
All right, making sure people have the ability to do something that we ask them. If we go on about how you should write and document your recovery phrase, and they're on the train.
Yeah, we have a rule. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, like we have a mobile app and we're asking people to write something down. Like what is the likelihood that they're going to actually have a paper and pen implement when they're downloading a mobile app?
You're going to do it.
They're going to be on the move 50% of the time, most likely, and not have access.
That's why I do the screenshot, right?
Context.
And I mean, again, it's the convenience of the price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just brutal.
Just a reminder, this is like slightly new theory in the world of UX about jobs to be done. Everything is about like a job to be done, which is basically like an underlying need. If I want to communicate with someone, it's because I want to tell them something. I'm not going to care about the security. I'm going to care about like bringing the message across. That's like more to come back to the attention. Another one here is that in some of the tasks that we have, so using dApps might not be one of them, but some of the tasks are very goal-oriented, so people want to make a transaction. The worst thing we can do if we want to have effective mitigation is interrupt people while they're in their flow of that, reaching that goal. So any information we want to provide about like, security, educate in context, but then actually don't interrupt people with messages and warnings while they're trying to obtain a goal, because they're just going to ignore it and continue because they want to get to that point quickly. I guess this one we talked about confirmation bias. As long as you feel like you've already found something, you're just not going to look any further. Change blindness. Okay, I'm gonna put this. Do you know the video of the guy in the monkey suit that passes in the back? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's change blindness. That also has the same effect when you look at a screen and something happens like very quickly without any transition. We don't notice it. So if you want to, what do you call it, spoof someone and replace an element, if you do it quickly enough, people are not going to notice. If we want to make sure people notice changes, we have to like build in transitions, which is I think also something still improve.
Yeah, one note about this goal. I mean, the thing here, it's also based on some dark patterns are pretty much based on that. When they ask you for an agreement while you're trying to do something in the app, like you launch the app because you want to, I don't know, write a note, and then they throw an agreement like GDPR agreement in your face, and there's a huge button, okay, I agree to everything you say to me, and you just press that because you want to type a note, right? So there are many apps that do like that.
Yeah, a nice sort of counter or like a mitigation strategy that I've seen that I think is nice is actually there are some apps that will detect scrolling for it, or like a certain amount of time. Like if you accept that too quickly, they'll say no, or they'll disable it for a certain amount of time or until you scroll to the end of the page and that type of thing.
Yeah, we did once into like inside the news feed when you start scrolling. That's one of them.
Yeah. TBD how effective that actually is, or if that's the right approach, but yeah.
This is also, but maybe jumping ahead a little bit, why I think we should be very careful using modal dialogues, because they're the ones that like interrupt that process the most. You want to reach your goal, something's in your face, or you have to do something to get rid of it, and then something's just going to click OK.
Yeah.
Yeah, this way, Nabil, I really liked what you mentioned earlier. Like there's more nuance to how we might be able to sort of give warnings, and maybe it is sometimes like, okay, this is just what's going on. This is just a notification, and sometimes it is we want you to make a very conscious decision about whether you want to continue or not. So there's a lot of flavors in there, and I think it's helpful in when we're designing these like mitigations that we pay attention to. Like, okay, is this something we want to inform someone about, or do we want to like have people change the setting of yes, I'll share my data or not. Yeah, auditing, I really like this one. To me, I can categorize it in another way. I really like this example of how Dennis designed it, where we actually asked people to check, yes, I know I'm on mainnet, rather than the information version we had before of just showing that you are on mainnet. So I think there's a lot we can do there. I was looking for a good example here, maybe not a good example. I put some pointers here. They all suck. There's always something wrong. Warning messages are really difficult.
They're really
You send email in Gmail and you can undo this instead of, so it's like you send something, but it doesn't really send it, and it shows that, oh, you sent this message and the press undo thing you just sent, because that's like in time, but you already sent it, I did a mistake.
Yeah.
So then,
yeah, that's a good point. That's a nice sort of that's a mitigation, like in app, in context. and not using a modal dialog, or they use a modal dialog for the attachment. So whoever wrote that.
Yeah,
that plugin.
Yeah, but I mean, for the like when you send an email, you can undo this section.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 30 seconds.
Yeah. And you can imagine maybe someone could do that with chat in some particular
or transactions.
Or transactions, of course.
They're still slow. I mean, just because blockchain is slow.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of a nice, like a potentially risk factor wise positive side effect of blockchain is that actually reverse transactions work.
Yeah, so last one, some like concepts around designing a warning and things that we can pay attention to. So we already talked about like how to make sure that the warning comes up at the right time. So like warning people before they even start using the app is probably not as effective. I'm trying to remember, I think it was either MetaMask or my Ether wallet, I'm not sure. There's one that has a dialogue of like maybe 12
my
pages.
Ether wallet is just like every time I don't use it because like I open it up, I'm like,
not now.
Yeah, leave me alone.
Yeah.
It's like 10 pages.
And it's well written. It's like it's fun, but
it's cookie based, and if you remove cookies from your browser on a regular basis, it's
Actually, Toshi reminded me of they've written a lot that reminds you to back up your seed phrase, which I thought was kind of interesting, but also a little bit annoying because it was a notification that comes into your phone. But at the same time, and it wasn't that contextual, but if I imagine like if I was using a wall on Toshi and they were like, hey, here's a chat over here, and I open it up, like that's contextual, it makes a little bit more sense.
Instead of exploiting messages, we can exploiting wallets.
Yeah. Your assets will go away.
No, the assets will go to me.
Yeah, there's some other things that are like known as in what works to create effective warnings, chunking the information, making it very like there's a header, then there's one sentence, and there's another point. Left aligned makes a big difference. I mean, all those things I'm not entirely sure why, but it has been studied and found to be more effective in getting people to.
In English translation.
Yeah. Sorry.
In English.
Yeah, exactly. Short sentences, an obvious one, cancel on the right. I mean, it does make you think about what you're doing because cancel, you go back and you have to do it again. So kind of makes sense. A signal word and iconography. I put here like a 10-feet check, just because that's for me the easiest way to see is this warning going to work or not. If I can see it at a distance, at glance, then it's going to work. Anything else is just too dense, too much information. People will click OK. It's an easy test.
Yeah, the other version of that is actually like the 14-inch test. Sorry for Imperial. But like basically lean back in your chair and squint your eyes at a text or like a set of text on a screen and see what pops out basically from whatever text that you're designing or you're and see if it's like kind of information available even when
You should get glasses.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, about the content, just saying you have a problem is not really helpful. So what happened, what does it mean, and what can you do about it are usually like the elements that you want to include. Also a path back to safety. So if you go back, then you go back to a safe environment. I'm not really sure how that would translate for us, but maybe back to your home screen or your wallet.
Have you seen anything where like it's actually like a video of a person talking to the person? Like as a warning? Like if I like skipped it and then like the thing came up with my face yelling at me for like not detecting the sign phrase, I would totally listen to that over a Google dialogue. So.
You can A/B test that.
I mean, it's interesting because it doesn't block you from interacting.
Right.
Right? It's just
it's chatter popping up there.
Yeah.
Parading you for it.
Skip this.
Not following the pillars.
I think we could test it. It would be interesting. Yeah. Feedback. So once you actually responded to the warning, like, what happens? I think this is maybe better for later.
Yeah.
That's it for us. That's all we can do.
Yeah. It must be a sob story. Someone else with the keys. Like, I lost all this money.
That it?
Yeah, that's it.
One very quick point on the seed phrase that you take a screenshot of. If we find that you've dumped a whole bunch of money into the account, after we could potentially ask, like we could basically create a new account and like reset the seed phrase and be like, hey, we just noticed that you've 100x the amount of money. Do you want us to do a security refresh? And now actually, here's your new seed phrase. Write this one down. Now you're comfortable with it.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah.
And it's like a do, and then we just do everything on the back end ourselves, and there's a small gas fee or whatever to move all your assets from the ultimate account, and you just new setup.
Yeah, exactly, because then you're psychologically in that space, so it makes sense.
So if we're doing like a security thing, like a security check, we could also, if we have access to media files, we can start iterating over the media files and detecting that screenshot.
Well, we'll know if you take a screenshot on the client straight away.
Right.
So then we can just know, and we don't tell them. Just later on, if we see there's a bunch of money, we'll be like, hey, by the way, you took a screenshot first time. Do you want us to set up a new account? It's actually no.
By the way,
it's Jared. It's a video of Jared going. So here's the thing. We know.
By the way, you were in this vacation when you did it.
And that also plays into the fact as to whether we should be creating an account to begin with. First thing you want to do when you download this thing is to check whether CryptoKitties work at all. You just want to look at them.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to transact or communicate or anything. You just want to feel the application. Throwing up a screen there, which creates an account, nobody even knows what an account is at that.
And you haven't built any capital. We haven't built any capital yet.
Yeah.
You have to do something. Well, we haven't even proven that you want to use status.
Yeah. This is a good point about what do people actually do first when they come into status.
The first thing is just to click the colorful icon and see if the application works at all.
Well, yeah. and then like, what does work mean? Like, does it mean like, can I actually talk to someone, or can I actually load up assets, or can I browse CryptoKitties? Like, and we don't necessarily know that.
Just tap the logo at the top. I do it all the time, expecting something to happen.
It's a build. It's usually your face.
Yeah. And that
what do you want?
So that's come up with the desktop conversation too, because we're thinking of putting a logo at the top, and we're asking, okay, what does that do? Like, does that take you home, or like, where does it go?
I think it's also context dependent. So desktop, I think, like I'm 99% sure we'll have an issue there because people are used to websites having home as like an icon as a logo as a home button.
Yeah.
In mobile apps, it's probably platform dependent, as in what's this like on Android and iOS, is there a standard of using like a tab bar at the bottom? And I've seen it, but not too often. So it could be due to like the type of people we've been testing with, or it really depends on the platform.
There's some instant bug reports on that. I don't think WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram have. But it's a UX.
How's everyone on energy? Because I suggest if we want to get like a drink or air, or we do it now and don't fall asleep when Eric's presenting.
I think it's small break.
Yeah. Okay. Like 5 minutes, get some air.
We're changing topic quite widely.
Yeah. Sorry, you're all set up now.
We remove all the found and we show that. Found out there. It's oh yeah, that guy. Because every time there is a connection problem to finance. Oh, the two weeks found the same. Right. So there is something else. It's Jack, you send your link, no? I will read them. So we're have to do like the line and be like, how about if you're in life? Yeah, I mean, I'm fond of that logic. I just let people know. I want to start. And Maria does have a decent training, but Too long. 3 minutes. Not me. Then there is a big.
I don't know if I can go because of the Schengen visa days. I'm not sure if that's even again.
I see the excuses valid. This is your belief to get more excuse. If I then we can how many people are coming to DevCon? Like this,
DevCon will likely be everyone, and then DevCon itself depends on I think it's
okay.
how many people have, so we can get the Friday to Monday will be the status.
Yeah.
And get together, and then well, the hackathon and then the one day get together, and you have DevCon.
So I would like to, one idea, just because this everyone, and that people have not attended any experience conference. Any, like, there's people have not attended a condition because one is here.
So I've already done that.
Yeah, it's great.
Some people, for example, Andy, who live, so for example, someone.
It's a lot of work.
I just mean people who have not come to anyway.
So people who have not gone to any yet, and especially considering some they don't have to come back. So
We haven't, I realize it more and more.
like, for example, anyway, I'm just going to put it out there. I'll handle it. I just have to make sure you're okay. That's all.
Like the, yeah.
I mean, like, I guess I would. They're supposed to be generalists, like, cover. Maybe work with it. It's not come from like two factors of disability. I'm like, oh wow, this is like super precise. Everything is going on. So even like, so when you feel something about baseline, I don't know what it's like for you, but I've found that different people react to the generic baseline.
Yeah.
Like, just baseline. So some people think it's like, yeah, you know, it's half the measure, and you know, there's, you're not being precise. It's going to be
That is enough. We need 2 years.
Yeah, because based on your I know. Well, then I wrote it slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that with but it's not how oh, sorry, that's not what I'm saying. Yeah. That's
This is a very
It's actually.
Take them all. They're nice. Take them all.
You want them? I don't eat them all.
Okay, that's the feeling that I need to share with someone.
Yeah, it's convenient, and it's like, and the whole thing about like the charger and it's very convenient having it.
Yeah, it is actually.
So if you
I mean, you actually can, for example. And you have that's the other thing. So tasks, and that's kind of like the starting point. Doing it online.
that's with
costs. Yeah, just last meeting, like, I see a mentor, like, how to shit, so that's, like, okay. I told him, I was like, oh, like,
have you seen the
yeah, I was
So it's good enough for us. So we're gonna go out tomorrow and say, everyone requesting to do and then on Friday, we'll do like a Q&A, a community goal, everyone got their alternative, and they can also.
Yeah.
And then sometime Friday night, or even people
I see 30 social.
Okay.
Anyway,
we'll see how it goes. I mean,
like to show you the intent. So we totally should do this, but like how would it so many indications?
and also because of the identity,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
try to voting.
Exactly. So
It's a good process.
yeah,
I think this is what they do.
yeah, I think the stages of the technology. And I think one thing that like we showed some during our how is so yeah, I mean, so yeah, like I mean, is that regular? So like the other people get on board. At least, I mean, to yeah, like a beta version. So we need to. Because we have to or maybe you could explain to me that
Twice as much.
So,
I don't understand. I haven't read it.
I haven't read it, actually.
I can't imagine there's a gap.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not like you should be designing it as a problem. But I think right now we should be focusing on things that maybe application business.
I think this is at least the more like so I think that we just but at least use it and I think some of the users are journalists
I mean, it can definitely be usable, right? Like,
it's not a million.
Like, but I think everybody should have a priority that is currently stands. I think the trying to reach billion I think it's a good goal. Maybe that works. Yeah, profession. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
You know, like,
yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to if we were to what would be interesting to advice.
Well, I mean, I think maybe this stuff starts finding right? So you do a bunch of stuff.
There's a lot of more things.
Yeah, which is why
so we could basically focus on this stuff. I think there's enough. There's enough work around. There's quite a
I'm just gonna go ahead and start talking now.
And it was really good to have on various because he was actually really good. He was saying a bit more about Ethan. They will be doing right now. It's looking like basically what they need to get a lot on. And like there's plenty of work that they do right now where you require on a shot specification. We also do culture more kind of research I see some issues on that side. Just a hunch, just to know that, I mean, it was pretty heavy. That's the fact that they're now doing
Much better. Lots of work. Yeah. Did you see any grocery shop or food shop over there? Yeah.
Take a right.
Okay.
It's basically straight ahead. I think it's so. Yeah, we crossed at some point to get to the street with the restaurants. But if you stay on the same street, you go straight, it's on the right hand side.
Okay.
And it's huge. It's a big yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the thing. I also think there are some we also have no performance on it. So that every common member we can say these
Just jump in. Instead of saying the conversation. Yeah, so.
Both sides of the independence, so the pro and against independence, they are both accusing each other of being the fascists. It's pretty unsuccessful that one. I'm just like, oh, did you? No, it's a good one. It's just that
It's really good.
no.
Yeah, I know.
Since I went to college to the university, so really.
Yeah, I think we're one.
So my parents live yeah, I was like always getting more
All right, should we continue? Man's voice.
Yeah.
Right, guys. Eric, you look full of energy.
Do I?
Good to go. All right, about chat, right?
Yeah,
That's
I'm gonna present the current communication protocol. And so I have half an hour, but I'm going to try to do less so that, because I probably forgot some stuff and people might have questions. So we'll start with the motivation. So initially, we started working on refactoring of the communication protocol with Jan because we wanted to. So the first goal was to use multiple topics because Go side introduced Whisper v6 with Bloom filters, and we wanted to see if using multiple topics for the chat will lower the bandwidth.
Another thing is because we are always trying to reduce the amount of dependencies that we have on GS side because we have a lot of them and it's complicated to audit all of it. We wanted to remove the encryption libraries from Clojure side. So that was another motivation. So these two are done in the current version of the protocol. We wanted to ensure better separation of concern in the code base because previously you could find a lot of things related to Whisper in other areas of the code, such as the chat itself. And in order to be able to eventually replace Whisper or just for good engineering practices, we decided to properly separate that. So everything is in the transport namespaces. So that's also done. And we wanted to refactor the code base to refactor the protocol to the code base standards. So we've over the past year we had spent a lot of time making sure events are done in a functional way without procedural imperative code, which is easier to so that it's easier to test and more in more within reframe guidelines for reframe apps. So that we've done as well, and we've reduced the number of. We wanted to reduce the number of events thrown for each received message, because that was a big problem. That whenever we would receive 100 messages, that would be like 400 events, and the app would be more, much less responsive. Do you have a question?
No.
So that's also something that has been improved. Even recent change by Roman, we actually have only one event for many messages. And then also important thing is we wanted to improve the collective knowledge and documentation of the communication protocol. Before the documentation was very small, limited to the message type that we have, and the person that made the initial code had left status for a while. So basically, nobody really owned the code, and only people would make patches here and there to fix a bug, but there was no real knowledge of how it was working. So
documentation includes specification.
Yeah, documentation explaining how it works, where it is, what it's doing, what encryption we're using. So that was only one wiki page, and it actually wasn't representing exactly what was happening, probably because some stuff had changed since then. And still can't really say it's. Well, we have Clojure readable code now, but it still could be improved. But I will talk about that after. But yeah, that was. And we also had this idea to use a different encoding format for interoperability, but also something less verbose to save on payload size because it's critical on Whisper. So that was the motivation for doing that.
Just a quick question: Do we have messages in Whisper?
They are added.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think 256 kilobytes.
Just a curious.
But but it's not you on. It's not us on Clojure side. It's on your side.
It's the protocol.
The protocol is we're using that feature at all.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know if it's by default or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's conditional. There's some condition when it's applied and it's not. But yeah, there's conditions. So that's what it's called, right?
For darkness purposes.
So the docs are in the wiki, and probably where is my mouth? Okay, so I'm gonna quickly show the. I think we can say that at the moment we completely zapped group chats. So it's really just about one-to-one chat and public chats. And I mean, there's probably no need to go into details at the moment, but that's the message type that are supported in the current beta. So there is one to create a new contact key, one for contact requests or contact request confirmation, for contact updates, that's to update the info about the contact. Then a message, which can be either a text message or a command, and then a scene message, which is sent when the user sees the message. So that's the current supported messages for one-to-one chat and group chats.
What is scene? Is it
It's when the message is shown on someone's on the recipient screen, it sends a scene message. But that's actually a feature that was debated a lot because, for instance, I consider that it's like something we could do without it, because it really tells, the person has seen my message, so it's privacy-wise, it's not a very nice feature. But people are addicted to it nowadays.
Yeah, I think if we add an option, it's almost no work in terms of implementing. You just don't send the. It doesn't break anything if you don't send the scene message.
No, it doesn't break.
Well, yes and no, right? Because by having that feature, you set up an expectation on the other guy's side that it works.
So you don't know if it's like if you don't receive the scene because someone has switched that off, or it's not set.
But I think even WhatsApp allows you to deactivate that, and then the downside is you don't see other people's scene message.
How does message retransmission work at the moment?
Message
retransmission.
There is no retransmission.
There is none.
It's based on the, like if you're not connected, then it's on the mail server. So when you connect, you receive them. And so I will talk about it later. Like we've been thinking about ways to do it. But for instance, the idea of sending acknowledgements, it brings a lot of problems because if the person is not there when you send the acknowledgement, and also acknowledgements are like scene messages. They give away a lot of information, and they increase your footprint on the network. So one proposal was some kind of heartbeat protocol, where over a long period of time there is a heartbeat, and it also helps figuring out when someone recovered an account, so he lost the symmetric key as well. There is an ID on GitHub ID repo about that. So yeah, pretty simple. Only 6 message types so far. And it's encoded in transit, which is Clojure it originates from Clojure community, and it's like EDN that is encoded in JSON. So there is readers and writers for other languages, but I will talk about it later. What I can say, no, it's we initially thought that it would be much easier for Go SDK, for instance, to write and read messages, but it turns out that it's the same as with EDN. It's done with string replacement, so it's not really what was intended. So yeah, we are open to better proposition like Protobuf.
This is mostly because it was implemented like this for the old protocol, and they just changed it very. Yeah, I mean the string replacement and this regex thing, because I implemented this both for the old protocol, and I did what was fast. And I think that when the Go SDK was done, no one just changed it. They changed the regexes, and that's it. It works. That's why there is no proper like parsing. I think. but it works like that.
Motivation to do it at that time.
Yeah,
it's just
replace regex and it just works.
Karen, what is if you say encoding? What's the package that is encoded? Is it like the content of the message, or when it was sent, or who sent it? Is that all bundled together, or is it separated into different?
So that's okay. So I can come back to the package because that's something that differed quite a lot from the previous encoding. So for instance, if you take a message, before there was a lot of so when you have a whisper message. So here we only talk about the communication protocol, not whisper itself, but a whisper message has within its envelope a lot of things already, and it has a content field, and that is what the communication protocol is using to. So that's the part that we are encoding. So it's like this concerns like content that is within the whisper message, and so it's kind of like whisper transports the message, and then it's delivered by Web3 filters. The content is delivered, and then it has to be decoded. So it's encoded by the sender and decoded by the recipient. But when we talk about encoding, in that case, it's not encryption. It's about putting data in a format that can be sent over the network. Because in a computer, when it's in memory, it can be objects or what. It's abstract, and that way you serialize it in a format that can be read on other computers. And so yeah. Yeah. So basically, it's text. It takes yeah. With JSON, it's JSON actually. I can show an example. That would be the message. A message when I say. So this is what it looks like to say hi to someone. So this is the content. This is the message type. No, the message type, the content type, the clock value, and the timestamp. And these are the only thing that we need in the envelope. This is the message type of the communication protocol. And this is because it can also be console message or something like this. So we really use the minimal amount of information, because before, in the initial version of the protocol, the user, for group chat, for instance, the user was also sent within the packet, within the envelope, here. And it's not a good thing to do, because Whisper envelope already contains the signature of the sender. So when you want to be sure that someone sends a message, that's where you want to look, because it's a signed message. Whereas this, I can say I'm Jared. I use this public key, and then people think it's Jared who wrote it. So that's the kind of stuff we got rid of, and we really focused on the information that is not available somewhere else.
Are we concerned about that timestamp?
Sorry?
Are we concerned about that timestamp?
Yeah, we
don't really need it actually. The timestamp, we use it, but it's like Whisper does give us a timestamp.
Is there any nonsense? Is there
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. It's just...
Yeah, actually, there was this problem that some people.
It's now used by Whisper timestamp. Because timestamp anyone can set it, and also like.
So we could remove it. No.
We could remove it. Yeah, we actually updated it by this so that it's passed in.
I think our concern was actually about retransmission. If we implemented retransmission in the future, that you need to send the actual timestamp and not the retransmitted timestamp, and Whisper envelope would contain the retransmitted timestamp.
I forgot how in terms of the transit encoding, so let's say you take a string and you add a field or you change some format or whatever, does that automatically get turned into like the next, it just increments the constant, so it's like C5 or whatever? Or
sorry,
like if you for the next version, you will always increment even if it's the same method.
As long as you change, you just have to change it.
But by default, it will do that. So it's not the case that if we upgrade something, it would overload C4.
No, we should never.
Yeah, but we don't want to do that. That's my point, I guess.
We might have that. We might have done that, but you cannot add stuff.
Right. So we don't increment that. How does that C4 get generated? What's it based on?
You cannot. You cannot add anything to it because it's a record.
I think you can add like some fields to it.
Well, you can in the not in that kind of message because it's all strings and integers.
If you add a field to the bottom, if you append the field.
Yeah, you cannot append the field because it's a record. Yeah, it has a reader and so. Okay. Well, the thing is, you could do that, but then you would have you would have errors from different versions of the app. So what you want to do if you add a field, you make C5 and C5 as an append field, and that's what I will explain for upgrades. But yeah, it's a record, so it cannot be changed in size. Yeah.
You might have done that.
It's okay if it was before beta.
Yeah. You might do it. Just for sure.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, like you always have breaking.
Yeah, but like if the field is missing and the reader doesn't know how to fill in that field.
Yeah, it crashes.
Just get nil back.
No, it's
how strict it is.
Yeah.
If there is more elements, the reader will throw an error.
Yeah, I thought it worked. I tried it once, but
do we have tests that ensure that these records stay by their shape, so we don't?
No, I don't think so.
So we need some standardization on that.
I mean, that's the readers. There is instructions to not do this. So the reason I'm saying it will take the 5 elements and it will create a process for message. It will take the array of 5 elements and it will put them like this. So if you add an element and it's not present, it might be nil, yeah. Maybe it will put a nil there. But if you but the thing is the other one, yeah, we can test it later, but it's just not a good thing to do because the idea is that if you change the protocol, you should create a new type so that it can be managed.
Yeah, I'm not arguing for it. Just in mind.
Anyway,
so digitally with this thing, how is that efforts in terms of the documentation?
Of the versioning?
Just in like application wide,
we're gonna start enforcing with a call documentation. We're gonna start enforcing sort of that as part of acceptance criteria. And we still need to figure out, but this is what we're starting out now.
Okay.
And still, so similar to the security champion, but right now we have set up where we put people from each team, and the idea is that we need to figure out some kind of plan for covering catching up to current, but also just starting from some time, like having it part of acceptance criteria.
You can only merge a PR if you sign off.
That's the sorry.
Yeah, the idea.
Yeah.
So you only are able to merge a PR if you signed off specifically, on the pull request. You will check all the boxes. This does not require a documentation change, so you check that off.
Yeah, we can also. I mean, it's pretty easy to automate with like like changing the existing protocol things. So if you change the existing instead of adding a new type, we can just fail the it's not that hard to automate.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why at some point we were discussing another encoding that would have actual schemas, and then the documentation would just be the schemas. But yeah, so are there more questions about this?
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's
Go on.
related, but is it so is it possible that we don't know the message, but we do know someone sent a message?
What do you mean we don't? What do you mean we don't know the message? The message type?
Or the content. Or that.
Why wouldn't?
No, it's a number. So once you have the message, everything is contained, so you will know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what do you mean? Like because it's a message type that we don't know, or?
So if.
What would be? What case do you have in mind?
Like if the message doesn't arrive, is there a way for us to show something, as in someone tried to send you a message, we don't know what it is, but we do know someone tried to send it, it just...
No,
The client wouldn't be
no, there is no, because it's supposed to be end-to-end encrypted and with no intermediaries. So besides the person that sends the message, nobody's gonna tell you. So that's why we had this Earthbit proposal where you periodically exchange a message that tells you the counter, the clock where you're at in terms of messages. So the idea is that even if you miss one of these Earthbit, at some point you will receive one, and you will know that you missed messages. So it's like message will always eventually arrive at some point.
There is one thing, which is that if we're sloppy or no, what's going to happen eventually is that the client will receive messages that it cannot decode. And there's an open question there whether that should be allowed and you should sort of try to show the message partially, or whether you should just discard it. If you just discard it, you're going to very easily end up with the re-request loop. If you show a partial one, it's sometimes
what do you mean about the loop? You mean like I didn't receive the message, and then you say I didn't receive a message, and so on and so on?
Yeah, so the heartbeat is going to say, I don't know, there's 5 messages, and message number 4, you cannot decode it.
Yeah.
So you try again and get into this malicious loop. So there are a few of these nuances to work on.
Yeah, one thing is that maybe that would require to put the clocked value outside of the message type, just part of the vector, so that it's always readable, and the message type itself is not kind of. But that's why I think an encoding format that has the versioning in mind is probably the best solution, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Because you can trigger the user to always try to ask the same messages.
Well, depending on how you do this when you implement it, right? One thing is that there's this optimistic decoding where you try to decode as much as possible, you should have the user, which is basically a set of spoofing and a bunch of other things. Right? And the other strategy,
but
you
cannot send you messages unless it's your contact.
How do you do that? You ask
And if it's your contact.
No, but for group chat.
Yeah, but in group chat it doesn't matter. It's just ignored if the message is faulty.
Yeah, they got like 2 3 messages and said, okay,
Yeah.
Wait.
Still,
So
then it just goes. That's it.
Can you repeat that, Andrea?
You have to be cognizant of these little.
Sorry, can you guys repeat the conversation?
Oh, it's the technical protocol implementation detail where it's very easy to introduce secondary behaviors that you did not intend, right? So the example here is that you receive a message, but you cannot decode it for whatever reason, right? And what do you do then? And one strategy might be to request it again, sort of as a resend. But that might get you into an infinite loop where you keep sort of pinging the other guy for the message, and you keep sending each other this message that is broken. So while a broken message or a partially decoded message is often used for spoofing attacks, or where you try to You make a false signal where something is shown on the screen of the user and there's more information hidden in there. It's a very easy way to open a security vulnerability. There's like in all these discussions later on when
that's why we should
these
not.
are little technicalities that need to be covered.
That's why we should not try to decode messages that we cannot decode. We should stick to what is known.
So I think this is maybe a detail that we can
focus
in separate. Even though it's an important one, but it's more of a. I was going to ask, what do you have started thinking? Because right now we're using it ourselves, right? But have we started thinking about how we can open this up, and in what form would that be? Like, what would other consumers of this be? Would this be like an EAP or like some kind of spec, or do we have any thoughts around how we can make this not just our protocol, but something more generally useful?
It's very stateful.
Sorry?
So it's very stateful, the protocol, just by its nature. So like you can't really like a host cave need to manage state. So that's I think where it prevents us to really push down things like to go side, because you need to have chat management to go side. So
I guess the more general thinking is just in terms of this sort of, because we're using it for chat, right? And we're probably not going to be the only ones who do chat. Right. So it would be useful to push more of an open standard as opposed to just, oh, this is our thing.
But it's like a way to do it is like Signal, for example, because you implement the state that it applies. So that's one way to do it. So like we provide some, you say you implement the state, you keep your state whatever you want. We access it through, like in that case,
right, like, exactly. I guess more.
All right.
Most of it,
So I can tell how mainframe does it.
Yeah.
And they simply join the Swarm development process, and they push their features into Swarm. So they have people that are working to join the Swarm, whatever stand-ups and so on, as if they were part of the Swarm team.
Yeah.
And they simply push features that they need in order to implement their chat protocol, and they push them straight into Swarm, right? So that they become part of the standard. And DSS was born pretty much this way. They're working on another one, which is BSST now, and they're also working on the chat protocol, which is probably, I think it's going to be theirs, but certain base layer features that are needed for it are making their way into Swarm as we speak right now. I've been keeping an eye on this and sort of talking to them. I know another guy called Swan City, working on their own chat protocol over Whisper for use within their application to sort of spread services that people are offering, whatever. So there's stuff going on here, and if we stay isolated for too long,
exactly,
it's going to be this unfortunate situation where nobody can talk to each other.
So maybe it would make sense to maybe talk to these guys, and maybe it's probably going to be lots of overlap, and maybe we could figure out.
Yeah. The other thing I've had, and I talked a little bit about this with the Swan City guys, was that they didn't really want to standardize just yet because they felt it was too early in the process. So that people could experiment with features, and then later on, once the dust settles, you sort of try to come to some sort of agreement around this. And we're probably not there yet either. We don't have a solid product that I would say is state of the art and interesting for the general public to consume. I think we need a little bit more work before we go that far.
One deliverable we could have, which would open up this dialogue, is to have as a goal that we want to push some kind of EAP, because then we would get critical eyes, right? So the next version of protocol, we figure out sort of what we need and likely what other people want, and we push an EAP, then we can start a discussion and also ask the Swarm City people and maybe whatever and see if that makes sense. We can be the ones leading this sort of standardization as well. Like there's no reason we have to wait and do our own thing isolated. Like the sooner we get even the draft EAP out there or whatever form it would take, I think the better it will be, or the better the community will be.
Ship draft is not going to be.
Not a ship draft. It has to be some reasonable standard.
Yeah. So we need to solve some interesting problems. Right now we haven't solved any because we're using the most basic encryption and protocol you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
There's probably some stuff we can learn from Matrix as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there were already voices in discuss that there were like writing this question, like what are the chats, the public chats that we have established right now? Are they like status chats or like two-way chats? So so other clients can join this public chat with people from other applications. So already people like kind of requested the burden to messages to touch either way.
Yeah.
So next.
Okay, here's a problem.
So then I have a few slides about weaknesses. So we mentioned it already, the protocol updates. And so the thing is that there is no forward compatibility. It's not possible to know in advance how to decode a message that is not known. So either I don't even know if a protocol, an encoding format exists that solves this problem. But one way to mitigate it is to release updates, like release the reception part of the update in a version and the sending part in the next one, so that there is like clients can already read and then receive. I don't know if it makes sense. What?
HTML.
Yeah.
HTML. Saying next and protocol forward compatibility.
Just ignores what doesn't understand.
So what they do is that they show as much as possible and like it degrades gracefully if you're unable to deploy it.
Gracefully.
Well, kind of. Right? And protobuf gives you the possibility to create slightly forward compatible protocols, at least. They give you the tools and then you can use them or not. But again, it might open up security also if you're not careful about it.
XML.
So it's not an impossibility, right? It's just that it's a little bit harder and requires a little bit more thought. I know the P2P guys. They've done a lot of work in this area. So they're working on several standards. One is called multi-hash, one is called multi-blah blah blah. There's like 5 or 6 of them, I forget the name now, and they're attacking exactly this problem. Like how do you ensure that the protocols and the standards that you put out there can be replaced by something else at some point in time? Very much what we can do. These are like these multi things, they're not full protocols, they're just little slices that you can pick out for your particular problem. Hashing being one, and there are others as well, right? Very interesting to look at.
Yeah, there are already implementations of that in JavaScript though, so yeah, maybe it's worth checking out. My weakness was this underlying with the format that we can encode and decode the message content into. So yeah. There are implementations, so maybe something useful.
Yeah. So then another weakness is the discovery topic, and it's a tough one because the idea of the discovery topic was that everybody's following it, so it's not possible to and to establish contact request. So it's not possible to know who is establishing contact, to even narrow down a group of people that are exchanging contact requests. And then a random topic is picked for the actual conversation. And but the problem is that with a single known topic, then it's easy to spam it and to increase drastically the bandwidth that is consumed by the app. So one solution is to use sharding, and one consequence is that you have less. You reduce the darkness because it reduces it narrows down the possibility of who is talking to.
They know what you're interested in, which topic you're listening to.
No, it's like, because instead of sending to one single topic that everyone follows, suddenly you will send contact requests to like a subset of addresses, and then if what you're interested in is X communicating with Y, then you go from the probability that
A huge probability to
well, you go from there is like no chance to know because 100% of the addresses are using this topic, and suddenly there is only 1% chance that an address is using this topic. So
basically, on this code topic, the probability of you communicating with that given user is 1 over the number of users.
Yeah.
With partition topic is 1 over the number of user partitions. So how many users are in each partition? Provided it is a different partition. It's a bit different. It's the same partition as well.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the Whisper approach to dark routing, but maybe there is no other. But it's basically by wasting a lot of bandwidth, and so the question is, can we do that without doing this? Because on mobile it's not really an option. So yeah. It's not a big weakness, but it was discussed that maybe it was not necessary to use symmetric encryption. We did it because it's supposed to be faster, but probably it might be negligible for the whole time that it takes to process a message, and it makes it hard to work with the recovered accounts, because then the symmetric key is lost for one of the participants. But yeah, that's a trade-off, and also it requires more async code, because with the public key we could just but the thing is that's going to change a lot in the future if we implement double ratchet and all these things. So it's not something that is worth changing just for the sake of it. And encoding, so we talked about it already quite a lot. And then yeah, when we were talking about other implementations, there is this problem with message IDs that they are not really, you can't really find them outside of Clojure. It's so that's something we would need to change. We didn't thought about it at the point, but it's the SHA of serialization of an object. It's not obvious that or other language can do that easily. And then for future developments, so there is the acknowledgements that I was talking about, which cost bandwidth and limits and decreases your anonymity potentially. The Earthbit protocol can be a partial solution to that, or maybe something completely different. There is media sharing that is requested a lot, but it's not feasible with the Whisper itself. So it requires, for instance, something like Swarm. There is a formal definition of the protocol, which doesn't really exist, especially since it's made through, it's using transit as some kind of interface, a transit definition. And finally, it might be interesting to have a testing framework. That's something we've not achieved so far, but a way to make two instances of the app communicate without having to run an emulator. So with Docker to test scenarios and test the protocol in various scenarios. But there is a discussed topic about the Hack Week where I described the idea a bit more. And that's it. So there are more questions?
It's issues, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, some suggestions, proposals on how to move forward, because we have a huge list of issues, a wall of shame, and then another list, and probably another list. So,
Lists.
that's right. All right. So bigger plan, tell me what you think. And especially here, I'm going to look at you because I hope you can fill us in with some more information about threat modeling. With all these issues we said earlier we need to somehow prioritize them and decide what we want to focus on for the coming 2 days. One way we can do that is create a threat model, a diagram, and plot those issues as to where are they. And another one is to just basically create a list and vote on which items we think are important. We can also do both so that we have some context about where these issues occur and kind of sort of spread our chances so that we focus on maybe 80% of the issues on chats, but also some issues that might occur with wallet. This is where I really don't have enough background on the threat modeling. After we've done that, and that's why I wanted to pull up some slides as well, I wanted to share with you this template to document issues. And I know we all really seem to enjoy HackMD. So this is on paper. It doesn't have to be on paper. It's more about the components of it that you describe that I want to walk through. So you don't really have to follow this. But there's a few things that I want to point out that if we want to get back to this later is really helpful if you can include it. One is the breakout topic number. So the first part of the list is already numbered. We'll add the wall of shame with numbers so that at least we know what we're talking about. Give it a unique ID because each individual issue might have some components to it that when you start talking, you realize, oh, but actually these are different things. So pick a topic from the list, but give it a unique ID. Probability and severity, I think, might be difficult, might be a little bit fuzzy, so they're not black and white, but it is good to somehow indicate, do we really think this is like a highly likely situation to occur? And maybe it's not that likely to occur, but when it does, the severity of it would be a major fuck up. So we really don't want to have that happen anyway. And include your initials or alias, whichever way you know that I can reach out to you.
Especially your public keys as well.
Yeah, write down your public key. Yeah, that's
the probability can change depending on the scenario. Like if you're in a normal times, maybe it's not probable, but if you're suddenly in an event like in Egypt or whatever, maybe it becomes much more probable.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know what do we assume the worst case scenario or
it is an indication. I would say assume the worst case scenario. We could go like all into that and like actually calculate maybe how probable something would be. I think that kind of goes beyond the exercise we're doing now. Maybe like once we have the whole process in place with security champions, and eventually we come into that. I think for now it's just an indication. For each of the issues, again, you don't have to like fill this out exactly, but there are 3 components to maybe keep in mind. One is the event of something happening. So what is the issue? And I think those are some of the things that we have listed now. So it could just be a copy of this is the issue we described. The conditions of when does this take place. So for example, it might only take place in Egypt under a certain circumstance. And then the last one,
which I think might require a bit more thinking as to, we haven't discussed it much, but what is the consequence? Why is it a problem for us? So yes, scamming might occur. Why is that a problem? Like, what exactly is the effect going to be? There's someone going to like lose their funds, or is someone going to be like, I don't know, tricked into buying something, selling something? All right, and this is for once we've like really thoroughly thought through like what is the issue? Why is it a problem? When we talk about mitigations, and again, it doesn't have to be exactly this list, but there are different types of mitigations. And like when I say mitigation, I like generally tend to like, how do we say that? Like combine all of them into one word, but there's actually different aspects to it. So one is like, how do we listen to understand if something is going on, if someone is being scammed? How, like, what kind of things can we put in place to monitor if something's going on? How can we prevent it? Which is very different from how do we mitigate it once it happens. So mitigating, maybe put a maximum limit on wallet exchanges, something like that. Preventing is like actually maybe like blocking certain activities. It's a very different type of mitigation. And when something has happened, how do we recover from it? So say we're going to be blocked somewhere, or we're going to be thrown out of the Play Store, or how do we respond to it? So those are elements to think about, and there might be more. I don't know from existing frameworks or what other topics there might be, but these are some that into mind for me. And after that's done, for each of those mitigations, I know there's a rationale behind it. I know that in the discussion, you might discuss 5 different solutions of preventing an issue to occur, and you select only one to document because you feel somehow that that is the best one. Other ones might be ranked out because we just simply don't want to go there, don't want to do that. And I think those are the ones that are important to capture for this output that we wanted of this meeting, of principles that we can go back to when we identify new issues. So those are very important for the future. I put a sample phrase to enable a particular status value that are still in progress. We will always, or we will never do this or that. But also, and maybe that to your point earlier, Oscar, like
because always like ideal future, but then we have all this crap that we have right now. So what do we do with that crap?
Yeah.
Do we shut down, or do we solve it in 2 years, or do we spend effort? So you could imagine a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is like pull the plug, we're not going to do anything. 5 is we can do it in 3 years. That would be 1 essentially.
Yeah. So it sounds like, because I put like this principle will be challenged when. It could actually be this principle is challenged now.
We have a lot of things that are challenged right now.
Yeah. But you can also actually like put a timeline, as in this is something we will only do 3 years from now.
And I think that's especially relevant now with sort of product timeline or whatever. Like if we're talking about launching 1.0, and okay, so what does this mean for all the consensus we're making right now? And it also touched on OKRs and stuff. Like, well, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things that are broken. So if we want to actually solve it before launching, then we have to make that extremely explicit. Not that just in an ideal world, but like we don't accept this. That's something that should be explicit.
What we can also do is go through the work that we've done on Friday and flag the ones that we really want to solve before launch.
Yeah.
So then, with all those lists of issues, I think it's helpful to kind of organize them. So I will need at least 5 minutes to copy paste some items and give them a unique number.
Does anybody know anything about the 1.0 thing? Except what Chad posted? Like, what do you mean for 1.0? What do you mean?
Like anything, yes.
Timeline?
Well, I mean, that's what the post is about. So let's have a discussion about it. What are your thoughts?
I haven't formed Max's not yet.
Okay.
No, but we have the hard limit of we won't launch 1.0 before the security audit is complete. That's definitely it's not before the audit is done. The next audit is done, so it might be later. How later?
Yeah, the security audit is not a.
I guess maybe I framed it wrong because now I realize I framed it the same way we did for the beta, which is like, oh, we have the beta event and then we have 1.0 event. I think that's the wrong way of framing it. I think the right way of framing it is we have a bunch of stuff we want to do in the product. We want to add new features and benefits the users, etc., etc. But then we also have these completely broken systems that compared to what we say we stand for when it comes to dog routing or like nodes or whatever. And if you want to be serious about that, that means maybe we should spend 80% of our efforts on that and not like 20%. So that should be clarified, and then this would be a good opportunity to do that. So for me, the 1.0 is like relevant, maybe in this sense. It's more about.
It's more like
forget that was a bad framing. It's about okay. So what are sort of we have a house and is it on fire? Okay, it's on fire. Should we like put it out, or should we like let's build a patio? I don't know. Like, that's what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing.
At least in my mind.
No, after you.
I was just saying the distinction. Don't think about it 1.0. Just think about it as it's downloadable through the App Store rather than right now by signing up over email and then downloading it through the App Store. There's like we're removing one step from the download process. Don't think about fanfare or marketing or PR around it. Just think about the number of steps it takes for you to download the application.
Yeah.
For me, the versioning number it's like a contract, and for 1.0, I think we should have an honest contract of what we currently provide. And the thing is, it's going to 1.0 it's the actual release, and there is a lot of things I would be uncomfortable having in the contract. I think already now, whenever we put a new release out, we should be straightforward about things that are not there yet, like ultralight client or no access to HTTP API, that kind of things. And for 1.0, maybe some of these, maybe we can leave it to the community to decide. What do you think you want first? You want a 1.0 for the symbolic, or you want us to actually spend more time fixing this particular point or this particular point? But I think the very important thing is to be honest and to have some kind of contract with the users. Like this is where we stand right now.
Yeah, I think like I've gotten messages saying, "Oh wow, it's amazing that the live client works so well," blah blah blah, and like I haven't responded because it doesn't use no damn client, right? So we're being quite disingenuous in terms of communication. And I think my understanding of at least the goals of 1.0 is to have something in release, like in the Google Play Store or something like that, ideally before DevCon 4, and I would prefer that we took it off the table and focused on like actually providing those values. And maybe if we want to have some public release, then we should have it to the community and like have them, the market decide exactly what that should mean. Because without it, like I think it's problematic.
Yeah, but that's important to think. We might also publish like 0.9 into the App Store and not call it 1.0 if 1.0 is like such a milestone. But still, like it's very cumbersome right now to sign up to test flight and things. So want to use it like for conferences and stuff. It's like it's pretty implausible that people will like, okay, I need to install test flight. I need to send an email. Then somebody manually have to like approve this email. Yada yada yada. So it's. So that's part we want to remove by DevCon.
Sorry. I think since I started this thing, I think I framed it as being about 1.0. I think that's a completely wrong mindset because it has to do. It's about what we pay our attention to, right? As an organization, I think that's because it's not just about this one release, and it's easy that we talk about specifics around that and test flight, blah blah, all the stuff. But it's really about what do we pay attention to as an organization, and like do we do both?
That's very different to what Jacek asked, though. Just to be clear. That's asked, what is this 1.0 discussion? And I was explaining that I agree with Igor on that statement and ignore the fact that it's called 1.0. Would we allow 0.8 to be downloadable without having to go through test flight? That's what that milestone is removing test flight from the process. And if you think we need X, Y, and Z, then that's fine. But calling it 1.0 and having fireworks around it, that's not the right. I don't think we should.
So, I mean, is anyone here comfortable with it being in, like, say, in the Google Play Store on mainnet? Like, are we all comfortable with that?
But isn't it already on the mainnet in the Play Store?
Well, I mean, it's restricted to a subset of people, right?
Yeah.
I think if you search for it on the App Store, you're able to find it.
Yeah.
On the App Store, not on the
Play
Play
Store.
Store.
On the Play Store.
Only if you clicked once.
If you're a beta tester, you're a tester already.
If you click the link.
No, I don't know.
On
I
Play
just
Store you
can
can
just
find it.
search it.
But
It's already, so it's already public.
It was like this since like
Ethereum status.
It's only after the
it
first
says
time you
that,
go
but
there.
you can still download it.
You go to the Play Store via a link that gives you access to it, and then you will always see it with your account. But if you take someone's phone that he never download status, you won't see
No,
it.
wait.
I
just got like my test phone just recently. And just search for status and it's there.
This discussion is relevant even if we never launch 1.0, and it's also relevant after we launch 1.0. This discussion is much bigger than just 1.0 as a one-time decision, right? Like this discussion should be about what are we okay with in terms of concessions and so on. I think that's more relevant because that's going to affect us now before 1.0, it's going to affect us after 1.0.
Yeah.
So I would rather, I really think that's better because right now everything is just about 1.0, blah, blah, blah. I guess it's just
it says that
now in terms of what we spend our time on. Do we?
It just doesn't tell me.
What are we not okay with, and what things are broken? What time frame do we want to fix it on? And if we want to do it in parallel with other things, or it's just like we need to take care of it now. I think that's if we can come up with some shared understanding of that, I think that would be really useful. Since right now people have very different ideas of what we should push and what's the most important. Maybe it's fine, and maybe a few teams they only focus on some things, and then we have other teams that focus on fixing these bugs. I don't know, but getting to some shared understanding of that is what I think this should be about. Because that's how we're going to impact the rest of the organization.
Do we know what the idea of no compromise in the world would look like?
No.
Like removing the compromise part, like do we even know where we're in? Like what an ideal world would look like? And then compromises on
They're going to take July 4th. So that's the use.
Which is why, like, I'm suggesting we try and give the compromises.
Isn't everything on the bucket list? If we stopped everything on that shame list?
No, I mean, we stopped that short as well, right? So,
yeah, I'm just going to say if we fill that out, wouldn't the no compromise scenario be all of that completed?
That's the other end.
Was this standardized to the security, like the product that
we
want to have?
So I think that's the open as a good world assumption, right? Because you remove all the bad things, doesn't mean that you have all the good.
Yeah, like in this, I don't know if anyone noticed. Noticed. But is there that we don't use like light nodes or we don't run nodes on this list? Because if it's not, then we can do perfectly secure like Infura-based solution, but that's not what we want to build, right?
So maybe you have like two extremes, right? Like one extreme would be that we make something that's completely. It doesn't matter if internet is down. Like it doesn't even matter if you have like. Flies with Bluetooth interjectors or whatever, like the process, whatever you can imagine, like that would be one end, and maybe that's like a 3-5 year time horizon. Another end would be if end-to-end encryption is broken today, or if there's a vulnerability in the wallet, then we should pull the plug, we should remove that, right? And then there's a whole bunch of things in that spectrum, right? But I think what you're saying is that if we have some idea of the ideal state, and then we figure out sort of what the compromise we're okay with right now. Like maybe you're okay if internet is down, that we are down. Maybe that's an okay compromise to do for the first 3 years, right? For example.
Yeah.
Right. So starting with the sort of end ideal thing, and then going from there, figure out so what are we not okay with at all right now, and what things lie in between, and what do we do about that? Something like this.
Yeah, and enumerating the things we're not happy about today does not necessarily cover all the things that we want to know.
Sure.
In the future release.
Maybe taking
it's a subset.
Maybe taking all the announcements that we made with the whatever promises we already put out there, whatever we don't provide yet is like something that needs to be in 1.0,
any promise that have already been done.
Yeah, and I don't know what those promises are. That's the thing, right?
Well, there is
Are we going
the
to be
blog.
like client only? Are we going to be like no influence? That promise.
Lady decentralized talk.
You do that in proof of stakes. It's just a proof of work.
So do we want to do as an exercise, like ideal principles? Is that useful or what?
It's almost 5 o'clock.
I actually have the feeling that it's
ending here. So planning to leave.
I mean, it's a good idea to just kind of like let us mull around the old nugget, come back with a fresh one tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
Definitely share that list with everybody that
It's in the
has already.
I think it would be effective to continue like discussing actual principles on Friday after we've had a chance to look at issues and see why we're making certain decisions. Because it does feel like a discussion that keeps coming up, and it's big and it's endless, and you can keep talking about it. So it feels like by applying it to like actual problems that we need to solve now, and seeing how we respond to those, we might get to a list of principles more effectively. That's my feeling. We can do it the other way around as well. Any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I guess the two big promises that we put out there is that one, we're fully decentralized clients, and two, that we're secure messaging, right? Those would be the big ones.
Yeah, and those we don't compromise on. That we already know.
We are
right now.
Okay. Okay.
Both just one of them.
Well, I mean, secure messaging because, like, I mean, we haven't really put the.
No.
Yeah. And then the same, then the last client, I mean, that's awkward at the moment. So, but at least you can define your own JSON easy.
Yeah, I mean, the light clients for messaging, when we consider safe, in kind of safe messaging, what kind of
security
percentage?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a secure messenger is many things, but a lot of people consider it non-compromising at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when you looked at the quote that I put up, which was about we're about building a messenger which is extreme in security. We're not building a secure messenger. I didn't write that because that's a more powerful statement, and I'm not sure that we're actually on board with that. Because we're pretty happy about compromising with user experience, for example, simplifying the world and sort of do these things. So far, at least from what I've seen, so I couldn't comfortably say that we are a secure messenger. Because with secure messaging, you're going down the rabbit hole. You're not making any compromises at all. You're willing to target a very small subset of users that are willing to sacrifice a large feature set in order to gain security. And I don't know if we'll ever be there. That might be our ludicrous mode, where sort of all bets are off and sort of everything goes into security. That might be one way forward. But like even within our community, right? Phil and Vitalik just had a discussion about this. Was it Signal?
Yes, Signal.
Signal is not a secure messenger. Everything they stand for is what Signal is about is providing practical security to masses of people. But they're not a secure messenger. A secure messenger is something like Briar because they don't make these analyses. They don't ask for a phone number. It's like user to set up an issue point. And that's a tough discussion to have. Are we a secure messenger? Because if we are, we're going to be scrutinized by some very smart people in some very specific ways. And if we have compromised the wrong way, we're going to fall out. buy somewhere influential, like pickaxe. Right? Big danger there. What we promise there is careful with the word secure messaging. It's a little bit.
I have a question based on your points. So just show of hands, people here, like, do people prefer to start bottom up, where we have like issues and then from there set out some principles, or do people prefer to like start with the principles and then dive deeper? Maybe we can just see what people think. So who would prefer to start with like issues and then from there drive some principles? Show of hands.
What do you mean by issues?
Like
pretty much
looking at that checklist to the wall of shame, and then seeing what emerges from there.
Bubbles up.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and who would 5.5?
Yeah.
I don't really have 2 halves. Okay. Yeah. And who would prefer to start with like principles and then look dive deeper into individual issues kind of thing?
I want to understand. Like, I want to clearly understand
And
the
then
definition of
examples,
security, like being a secure message.
Being censorship resistant when decomposing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess it's like whatever. So maybe that's 2 groups.
Yeah.
We just split.
It's better.
So maybe
we meet in the middle.
Yeah. So one group is looking at specific issues, and one group is looking at
I split
principles. And then we see where we end up when we meeting.
But I think that would be okay, so like half a day, maybe not.
Oh no! It's just like off. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a long time. Yeah.
But also, like, status is not just a messenger, right? So there are different features to status than just a messenger, right? So if we just focus right now, we want a messenger with the security, it's not really all that status is about, right?
Yeah, we more general. Yeah.
So like bringing like the apps to public, it's kind of conflicts with like secure messenger, right? Because secure messenger, you need to sacrifice public, as you told, for security. But if you want to bring Ethereum, or Ethereum the apps to more people as well, then it's kind of different set of compromises. Yeah, that's just one more thing. Because we also always talk about like chats, but it's not only chats and.
But it's a chat meetup.
I didn't know
it's
that.
Also orientation and
I think it's a valid point. Like, I mean, there's certainly principles in how we approach. I mean, we are a proto Web3 browser. We're not Web3. We are like a Web 2.5 browser. And so like we have the ability to define how we approach sort of third-party code or like these sort of Web3 websites. There's a whole host to think about, more issue-wise than principle-wise.
Yeah, but just if we decided like on the set of compromises, taking only chat into account, we might end up very in an unexpected place in terms of the apps or in terms of wallet or this type of stuff.
Yeah, wallet and app and distribution and organization. I think everything.
But that's the same thing with starting the discussion from principles, is that you're not faced by reality in that discussion where you don't see the compromise, you only see this idea and you never had the chance to moderate it by.
Could I ask if there is a split tomorrow morning that probably there's a lot of people who may want to be involved in the discussion about what status principles are, if not to contribute, others just get us in. So if we can set up with this group, whoever is going to be in the group focusing on the principles, so we can record it, and whoever's in the group, if we can have one person to document, take notes, so that we can have something to like come out of the discussion. Because I don't think we had any note takers, like we have everything on video. We don't have notes, and there's a lot of good discussion. So especially in this, if this is going to be like what are our product principles? What are we not going to compromise on? Let's make sure we document it, record it, and make sure as many people can be involved as possible.
All right. 9 a.m. tomorrow? Does that work?
Suggestion of 6 a.m.
All right, 6 a.m. Go home with your letter.
6 a.m.
Yeah, 6 a.m. Yeah.
For us,
Before we break off here, I compiled the list.